Bills Mafia. You are joining 𝐸_RICH, Akeem Richens, and DM3 Dave Myers for the Built in Buffalo postgame show brought to you by Southern Tier Brewery. 𝐸_RICH, that was a little bit more close for comfort than I'd like to admit. How are you? How you feeling over there, man, after this one?
𝐸_RICH, Akeem Richens, Built in Buffalo. If you don't know us by now, ladies and gentlemen, get to know us. DM3. It was a lot closer than I think many expected. Me personally, I feel great. The Buffalo Bills on a short week against a division rival, tough opponent, moves to 3-0. This is a game where everybody counted out the Miami Dolphins, 12.5-point underdog. This is still a team that has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devin Achane. The divisional game. I felt that this game, because of what they was up against, the Miami Dolphins, and everybody was already crowning the Bills. I already didn't like that going into the week, right?
Agreed.
Everybody's just like crowning the Buffalo Bills. The Miami Dolphins have a 0% chance. I'm like, okay, come on. I love my Bills, but 0% chance? So it was like, okay, I don't like the narrative that's been spinning earlier in the week. So I'm not surprised that this has resulted the way it did. The Miami Dolphins, at the end of the day, they have a lot of players that's above average players over there. And then when it's a divisional opponent, they're going to know you a little bit more. And it's going to be these type of games and these divisional games. So I'm just happy and thrilled with the Buffalo Bills coming away with the victory. Is there a lot to work on? Is there a lot to talk about? Absolutely. And we're going to get into that.
I think too, though, there was, like you said, there was a little bit of desperation mode from the Miami Dolphins. I'm sure that Mike McDaniel was digging way deep into his bag of plays and things like that, because to me, looking at, and we touched on this before we came live, if you look at the game last year in Buffalo, Miami always plays the Bills tough in Buffalo. It's in Miami where it seems to be Josh Allen does the AFC Player of the Week offensive stuff. So to me, it was, could the Bills not give up big chunk plays? Because that's what I think everybody was concerned with, was they have Tyreek Hill and they have Jalen Waddle and they have Devin Achane, and those guys typically can get big chunk plays to keep Miami in games. If you look at the game that the Dolphins played against the Patriots last week, it was there was big chunk plays here and there. So to me, it was concerning, and we're going to get into it. We'll break down all three phases of the Bills and the offense, defense, and special teams. But to me, that drive when Josh Allen got sacked, and then they had that weird field goal attempt that Prater just shanked to the left. I'd have to go back and watch the film and see if it was deflected or touched or whatnot. But that drive right after that was 17 plays for the Dolphins. And that was just a back-breaking drive because that led into halftime 14-14. So to me, there was momentum swinging each way to start. The Bills looked like they could do no wrong on offense until that drive. I thought the Bills were going to go up 21-7 on that drive, and then they had the big run from Cook, and then they just kind of stalled. I don't know if it was play calling or if it was just execution. But yeah, so we're going to break this all down. If you guys are watching us for the first time, welcome. This is Built in Buffalo postgame show. That's one of the founders of Built in Buffalo, 𝐸_RICH, Akeem Richens. I'm the other founder of Built in Buffalo, DM3 Dave Myers. Please smash the like button if you guys are watching this. If you're new to us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell for notifications. You're watching on Facebook, drop comments, smash a like. And if you're watching on X and Twitch, please smash the like and drop some comments. I'll try to keep up with the comments as much as I can. Typically, post-game shows, they're flying in all over the place. So if there's something that you guys want to touch on, if you have some comments, anything you guys want to put in there, again, super chats are open if you're watching on YouTube. That's a good way for us to put your comment directly on the screen. 𝐸_RICH, where do we want to start with this? Do we want to break down all three phases first? Do you want to just touch on a few things here, and then we'll kind of let the conversation lead to wherever it leads to? How do you feel about the offense? Let's start there. How do you feel about the Bills offense? Josh Allen was sharp. I thought he was pretty sharp. He forced a couple throws in the second half, but 22 for 28, just over 200 yards, no picks. Again, the Bills won the turnover battle for the 25th straight game. So how do you feel about the offensive performance, James Cook and all that stuff?
And that's exactly what I was going to get into, the offensive performance for the Buffalo Bills.
See, I can read your mind.
Yeah, man. We got a same brain. We share a brain. Cook, along with Josh Allen's 3 touchdowns, he had 19 attempts, 108 yards, a touchdown. 𝐿𝐮𝐞 was involved in the passing game. I think that's something that we wanted to see coming into 𝐿𝐮𝐞 third season for the Buffalo Bills. He is the first round pick on the offensive side of the ball for the Buffalo Bills. Elijah Moore got involved. He had a rushing attempt. He had 11 yards. It seems like they try to get him involved on that sweep, on that jet sweep. On the offensive side of the ball, they want to get him the ball, and that seems like one of the go-to plays. But when Elijah Moore gets the ball in his hands, you see his explosive ability. You see he can kick it up a gear, and he's been fun to watch after the catch, and we see why. Then I think we both spoke about it before the season started, and when everybody was like, Elijah Moore, does he deserve to make the team? And we was like, okay,
Right.
hold on. You know, we want to see how Elijah Moore performs with QB1 with 17 out there on the field, and we're seeing little glimpses of that. And I think Joe Brady, being that it's his third game of the season, he's slowly trying to figure out what type of receiver Elijah Moore is, what he does well. Obviously, the jet sweeps is one of the things he does well, but I think as the season goes along, he's going to implement more plays for Elijah Moore, and I think he could be a big proponent to the offense. Tyrell Shavers got involved, right, on a big play, and he caught the ball, and he was able to make a play. So it's good to see the Buffalo Bills follow their mantra, live up to everybody eats, because everybody ate a little bit today. We saw Jackson Hawes get involved in the passing game as well, having his receiving touchdown. So that's great to see. When I look at the stats and I look at James Cook performing well, and I look at Josh Allen performing well, but it's still something missing. It's still something missing within the offense. And it was a lot of plays or a lot of drives where the Buffalo offense had the opportunity to put the Miami Dolphins away, and they failed to do so. And I think it's a lot of predictability at times, in my opinion, now where we have to dig deep into the schematics. And I think this is where coaching lies. And I think the predictability lies obviously in the play call. And I think we've seen that a little bit. I think we've seen a lot of horizontal plays, a lot of short passing plays where it's frustrating at times when it's second and long and third and long, and you're throwing the ball 3 yards and 4 yards. And it seems as if the play was designed that way for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills offense. So that was frustrating. And I think that, Joe Brady still is a work in progress in terms of this year's team and who he has on offense, but I don't think he get a pass. He put the Buffalo Bills team, I think both coordinators, if I'm calling a spade, could have performed better than what they did today.
You said so much there, so much good stuff there. I don't even know where to begin. I feel like I'll go here first. Let's talk about Elijah Moore, because I feel like seeing Curtis Samuel, and I said it in our group chat, seeing Curtis Samuel as the game day inactive wide receiver making $9 million a year, I feel like Elijah Moore is getting the Curtis Samuel treatment with Joe Brady. It feels like week one, he wasn't super involved. He got a little bit more involved against the Jets, and then you saw that nice big catch he had at the end of the game, and he had that nice run. It feels like they're just kind of leaning or just kind of easing him into the offensive playbook, which is nice. Now, talking about Joe Brady, and there's a lot here to unpack. There's a lot of layers to this. Last year, we talked about how ball control the Bills were and how they called plays that were high percentage plays, even if it's low yardage, but they were high percentage plays. And I think that contributes a lot to what we saw from Josh Allen with the turnovers come down. We only had 6 interceptions and 2 fumbles. We saw the turnovers come down because things were, I don't want to say they were close knit, but you saw that week one against Baltimore. In that first half, right? Why are we throwing the ball behind the line of scrimmage? The Ravens know that we do that. We did that last year. It's not working. They game planned for it. So a lot of the stuff that you saw today, it seemed like it was all low yardage, high percentage. Just don't make a mistake. It's okay if we have to punt. And to me, I don't, and there's a lot here. To me, I don't know if Joe Brady has deep downfield plays in his arsenal. I want to call a spade here. Take a saying from you. When was the last deep shot that you've seen from Josh Allen? And you can't say, well, we don't have the receivers. We don't have the horses to do that. We do. Elijah Moore, speedster. Joshua Palmer has been known to beat DBs deep. Like, we have guys that can get downfield. I just haven't seen play calling that's further than 15 to 20 yards downfield. And if that's the mantra from Joe Brady of everyone eats and it's, low yardage, high percentage for Josh, let's just try to keep churning and churning and churning, maybe with our run game, and we'll open things up. But you said it in our group chat, the Miami Dolphins secondary was down to third stringers, every position. They just kept getting injured. It seemed like in the first half, every other play, somebody was going down, and they were having guys off the practice squad that they just elevated starting games. And the one guy, I forget his name, he was dealing with a hamstring injury, and he was the third stringer, and he was out there going up against the Bills wide receiver. So is that concerning to you, the lack of deep balls that the Bills are throwing, or is that just not something that the Bills are going to do? You have a guy with an absolute hose for an arm, and you're not throwing the ball downfield. I mean, I get it. You want to control clock, and you want to do all this stuff. You have an amazing back in 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽 Cook, but you're just not pushing the ball downfield. I saw some comments in the chat saying that we should have just went for the jugular when it was becoming.
That's what you're supposed to do.
when I think that we can all agree that the Bills on paper and what we've seen through 2 games, not this game included, the Bills are the better team offensively. And when you have the better team offensively, you have to take it to the other team. You just have to keep taking it to it. And I felt like in the second half, the Bills were just like, all right, we'll just throw some intermediate stuff and we'll see what happens. Oh, 3 and out. And then the next drive, 3 and out. And as Joe Brady, looking at what his his other coordinator and Bobby Babich wasn't able to do on defense, you got to just step on their throats. You have to dial up plays in your bag that you can get downfield. So I don't know what's your thoughts on any of that I just said. I know I just rambled for about 10 minutes, but what's your thoughts on the Bills offense looking like they're controlling the ball and they're just not able to? There's no big chunk plays coming. There's just not. What's your thoughts?
I think that is a part of Joe Brady's repertoire now. I think he's been the Buffalo Bills offensive coordinator for a year and a half, almost 2 years now for the Buffalo Bills. I've seen him, long enough to kind of understand what type of play caller he is. What you want to see is, okay, we do have an understanding, but are you going to be like players as a young coach and evolve? Right? Are you going to be like young players as a young coach and progress as an offensive play caller, as a player would progress before he reaches prime and possible ceiling? And that's the concerning part about Joe Brady offensively that I necessarily haven't seen. The progression to go down the field vertically, right? I think overall his offense, he wants to establish the run, which is great. Right? You want to have that. You want to have the ability to run the football. You want to have that ability to run in between the tackles and work the trenches and enforce your will on opponents. And I think he wants to get the ball out in space, get the ball out short, and let his receivers or let his running backs or let his skill position players do the work. And when it looks good, it looks good. But when plays have to be made and situations and circumstances persist where you have to throw the ball vertically, I think he struggles. Do I think he's capable of doing it? Absolutely. Why do I think he's capable? He's did it before, and we've seen it yet a couple of weeks ago against the Baltimore Ravens. But he did it because he had no choice.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
He had no choice. He had no choice but to say, you know what? Let me come out my shell. Let me come out off these clothes and do something that I'm not accustomed and comfortable to do, but I have no choice but to do. Otherwise, we're gonna lose this game. We need Joe Brady to be in that bag in every situation, in every circumstance, not just when his back is against the wall. So does he have the ability to do it? I think he does. Does he have the ability to consistently do it throughout the course of the game when the game is in the trenches? That's something that remains to be seen, and I think that's a work in progress as an offensive unit is in its entirety.
Let me ask you this though: is this a Josh Allen thing or is this a Joe Brady thing? Where we saw with Brian Daboll the interceptions, we saw with Ken Dorsey the higher interception numbers. Do you think that Joe Brady wants to just keep Josh to where it's high percentage, keep him calm? Don't make him force anything until he has to. Like you said, against the Ravens, Josh was dialed in the fourth quarter against a really good Ravens secondary. So to me, it's confusing because you're playing the Miami Dolphins, whose secondary got destroyed by the Indianapolis Colts. They lost by 30 to the Colts. And that's Daniel Jones, somebody who is nowhere near on the level of Josh Allen. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for the reason why the turnovers were down last year for Josh. Maybe it was more control. Maybe Josh grew into, more of a visionary passing quarterback. But I just didn't see tonight where there was like a killer mentality. And you are playing the Miami Dolphins in your house. It's a division opponent. It's week 3. You know that if you put them down 0-3, there's probably no shot that they come back, even making the playoffs. There's probably no shot. Not that there was before the game, but it's like, I don't know. I'm not concerned by any regards because I feel like we have a better receiving core than the Bills had last year. I don't see the killer instincts. And maybe they thought the game was in control. Maybe Joe Brady had more, maybe he felt more confident in the Bills, coaching staff to make adjustments on defense and we're going to get the ball back and stuff like that. But I just, going up against high flying offenses, are we going to rely on fourth quarter Josh Allen every single week? I have no problem if he can do it every single week, but we're asking a lot of him to do that. And again, I don't want to nitpick too much because Josh was good tonight. Like all those throws he made were really nice, high percentage throws. I feel like in the second half, there was a couple that he forced. And I did want to ask you about the run game because James Cook averaged 5.7 yards per carry. Do you feel like in that third quarter that they went away from the run game and they should have just, and again, here I'm talking about trying to have that killer instinct and they went, that's why it's baffling to me. Like Joe Brady tries to control the clock and keep the opposing team's offense off the field, but then he went away from the run, which was working. James Cook was getting chunk after chunk after chunk. And then 3 straight plays in a close game when you need to consume clock because your defense was just on the field, they went away from it. So what's your thoughts on how the Bills came out offensively? They scored on that first drive. And then after that, it was just like pass, punt, pass, penalty, pass, couple yards, punt. Like, what's your thoughts?
So right quick, I think that just like a player is almost a situation where I don't want to say you have to take the good with the bad, but Joe Brady's offensive scheme is the reason why Josh Allen is able to change his entire career in terms of his outlook as a football player, from being a turnover machine to now want to be one of the quarterbacks that takes care of the football the best. I think that is because of Joe Brady and his offensive scheme, the way it's designed, where you are, it's an offensive identity where you want to run the football and then you want to make easy passes, high percentage passes. So I think because of the scheme, it elevated Josh Allen's game because he's able to take his turnover turnover ratio down in 25 straight games, winning that turnover battle because we've seen that great interception from Terrell Bernard earlier today. So It's almost like, okay, we're struggling getting the ball downfield vertically, but again, this is the best version of Josh Allen we've seen, right? And that's under Joe Brady calling plays. So I just hope for them both together to elevate their game as an offense and skill position players, and the play caller himself as the season goes along, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But getting back to the run game, do I think they went away from it? Not necessarily. I just think it's the play call. It's the play calls that I wasn't really thrilled about. It's the predictability in the play calls. It's the short passing attack where we're hoping that our player can make a man miss, and our skill position players tonight wasn't able to do that as much. So it's a little frustrating when you understand and recognize the down and distance in the situation, and the play call just falls several yards short of your ultimate destination in terms of down and distance you have to make. So I think that's more play call and play design more than getting away from the running attack, even though James Cook did have success throughout the course of the game.
James Cook worth every penny. I'm sorry, he's worth it. He's worth every penny.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I thought that long run that he had in the second quarter, I thought he was going to break that. I'm like, oh, here he goes, 60-yard house call. But he got tripped up. So all right, let's talk about the defense a little bit, because I feel like a lot of people want to touch on the defense. I if you're on social media during a Bills game, especially today, a lot of it was on why can we just not get off the field on third down. And I know the Ravens, it was atrocious. It was better, obviously, against the Jets. It was so good against the Jets that it made the Bills the best third down defense in the NFL. And then here we are today. I believe the Dolphins were 10 for 15 on third down. So something has to change. And now I understand we're missing Ed Oliver. We're missing Matt Milano. Benford got dinged up a little bit. But let's talk about defense, man. I know you've been wanting to talk about Bobby Babich, and you've been talking about Bobby Babich, it seems like, for 3 weeks now, about this defensive scheme. So what did you see tonight, and is there positives? What are you concerned with? Like, kind of elaborate on the Bills' defensive performance tonight.
When there's pattern behavior, I think that's when players, not when players, I think that's when us as fans start to look to the coach, right? Let's give an example. Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills. Nobody's giving the Buffalo Bills for that comeback against the Baltimore Ravens, even though obviously I think we deserve it. We took that game, right? Yep. Josh Allen took that game against the Ravens. But what was the narrative all week? Well, the narrative all week was, you know what? The Baltimore Ravens let the game collapse. They collapsed once again, right? They collapsed once again, and this is the 18th game under John Harbaugh where the Baltimore Ravens have done so. Let a team come back late in the games. Well, that becomes a coaching issue, right? They start to look at the coach after that, right? And I think this is in the same realm where, why can't we're talking about not being able to get off the field again on third down, right? This has become an issue. We don't the pass rush was non-existent once again for the Buffalo Bills on third down. Tua had all day to throw. We all know if Tua can get off his first read, everybody, even the Indianapolis Colts, his former teammate said that. I think it was Xavier Howard. If you get Tua off his first read, he's going to struggle when he have to read through those progressions. The Buffalo Bills, for most of the game, it seemed like Tua didn't have impressive numbers, but when it's time to make a play, the Buffalo Bills didn't seem like they can get him off his first read. And because of that, he looked brilliant tonight at times. He threw the ball with accuracy. He threw the ball precise when he needed to throw the ball precise at times. And once we got a little bit of pressure, shout out Deion Walker, right?
Oh, yeah.
Once we got a little bit of pressure, We seen what happened. Deion Walker was able to get in his face. It was an interception. The only other time I seen pressure throughout the course of the game was Joey Bosa. I believe he made a splash play when he was able to get pressure. And what happened? He overthrew Tyreek Hill. So when you can get pressure on a quarterback, especially a player like Tyreek Hill, like Tua, you can definitely disrupt his timing in his game. But the Buffalo Bills, for the most part, wasn't able to do that. And that's concerning because we're going to have to go through teams that's a lot better than the Miami Dolphins if we want to go where we really want to go this season. So I do have my concerns going forward, and I think it's starting to become a deeper issue than we have to stop making these excuses about players. Matt Milano, the Buffalo Bills should be used to not playing with Matt Milano.
True.
Right?
True.
They got Shaq Thompson in. Shaq Thompson was in the game. Dorian Williams is a third-year vet. He's played a lot because of the absence of Matt Milano. How much years that we can't keep using? Well, you know, the Buffalo Bills struggle, but they ain't have Matt Milano. Buffalo Bills struggle, but they ain't have Ed Oliver. They still had Deion Walker, which they drafted. They drafted TJ Sanders. They got Daquan Jones. They have NFL players that is able to contribute and compete, that should be able to compete against this Miami Dolphins front, right? We don't know this Miami Dolphin front, this offensive line. They have a lot of patchwork along the offensive line, and we're trying to make excuses for our defense. At what point we are going to have to start looking at the coaching staff? Obviously, McDermott, being a defensive guru, has to be involved, but the play caller, in terms of Bobby Babish, I'm still a little concerned and suspect about his defensive game planning going forward. But again, we're going to have to see. Everything has to run its course, and our players have to get back healthy.
Yeah, I posted on social media that good teams find ways to win ugly games. This wasn't an ugly game, but this wasn't a game where I thought it was going to be the Bills are going to kick a field goal with, 30 seconds left to go up by 10 to put it away. I felt like this was the Josh Allen experience against Miami Dolphins. Again, I hate all those the Bills are like you said to start the show, the Bills are the favorites and they have the second best betting odds to win the Super Bowl and Josh Allen against the Dolphins and things like that. Because at some point, some of that stuff, the stats and the Josh Allen 7-0 on Thursday night games and all that stuff, that stats are stats for a reason, because there's times when the stats are going to start to even out or they're not going to go that way. But you talk about Deion Walker. I was pleasantly surprised by his play, not just on that interception, but I felt like he was making some impact throughout the game. And I also thought that Daquan Jones he played better tonight too. So again, hopefully Ed Oliver, the Bills have 9 or 10 days until their next game against the Saints. So again, I feel like that's another home game. The Bills don't have to travel 10 days. Do you give the Bills at all a pass? I mean, now the Dolphins they had 2 walkthroughs this week, and the Bills had 2 walkthroughs and only 1 practice. Do you take that into consideration at all? Like, you had literally 1 day of actual getting reps, offense versus defense. Do you think that plays into account at all?
Yeah, absolutely plays into account. The Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins is a divisional game at the end of the day. Right. And we have to take that into account. And of course, they're going to feel affected. Of course, they're going to see the media outlets and media pundits, and they're going to want to, put their best game forward. And I think Deion Dawkins even talked about it. I think earlier today, they was talking about it in the commentary. And Deion Dawkins even talked about it. So I'm not surprised that, the game went the way it went. Of course, we have to evaluate the game and see what happened and why things went the way it went. But I'm not surprised at all. Talking about the defense a little bit, I think Deion Walker played an outstanding game. He's outperformed TJ Sanders.
Agreed.
In my opinion, in a Buffalo
Agreed.
Bills uniform. He's outperformed TJ Sanders.
So how are you feeling about the AFC and the AFC East? Because it looks, the Ravens play the Lions on Monday Night Football. The Chiefs play the Giants on Sunday Night Football. So we could be looking at a situation, even if the Chiefs are 1-2. If the Ravens lose to the Lions, who else in the AFC is there that is going to be scratching and clawing for that number 1 seed? Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself. There's a lot of season left to play. But you look at this game, the Bills win by 10. They were favored by 12.5. Say what you want. The pundits tomorrow will say that the Bills were there. It was embarrassing. They should have blown this team out. Miami's the worst team in the league, yada, yada, yada. But and it's a week-to-week league. But my point is stacking wins when you can stack wins doesn't matter at the end of the year, as long as you have more than the team that is the number 2 seed or 3 seed. So how does this win feel to you? I don't want to bring up too much emotion, but how does this win feel as far as you kind of said like you weren't concerned with the 12.5 point, spread and all this stuff. Like, you feel confident heading into now 10 days off. We can kick back on Sunday and just watch, regular football without stressing about the Bills. How do you feel after this game heading into, a 10-day span here?
It's a sigh of relief. I think this game could have went either way. And we had a comment here talking about this right here, this penalty, a roughing the pass on the kicker might have saved us tonight. And I think this, obviously, that's the turning point of the game, right? We see the game. We have eyes. Let's just be honest with ourselves. That is definitely the turning point of the game. But in my opinion, I look at that as a good sign for the Buffalo Bills. Sometimes when teams is on that destiny train, you have things like this happen. And what happens is it's not just a penalty. The Buffalo Bills still had to get the ball and still had to finish and do the job and score. And they did that job. So this is what good teams do. They take advantage of teams, reeling teams' mistakes. So overall, I feel great. The Buffalo Bills are 3-0. This is where we want to be. We didn't play our best football, and we're still finding ways to win. So I feel great about the overall result.
How do you feel like, and I'll go back to that comment because it felt, I hate that I'm going to say this, but it felt very Chiefs-like. You had the comeback win in week 1, which they had no business winning the game, but Josh Allen just was miraculous. And then this game tonight felt like, okay, we need a break somewhere. We need, like, the momentum is shifted completely to the Dolphins after it was 21-21. And then we got that roughing the punter penalty on the Dolphins. And then the Bills went down and scored. It kind of felt like 2 out of the last 3 weeks, I kind of felt like things that typically don't go the Bills' way kind of went their way. So like you said, I don't know if it's a destiny thing, but let's talk about the secondary for a minute. Let's talk about Tre'Davious White, Christian Benford, Cole Bishop, and Taylor Rapp. How do you feel that the secondary played tonight against, the Dolphins can be potent. Like I said at the top of the show, like they could score in chunks. How do you think that they handled Tyreek Hill? And I know Jalen Waddle he had a shoulder. He was banged up a little bit. But how do you think that they handled the Dolphins tonight? And is this something that, could be a little concerning? I know Trey got burned a few times tonight. What's your thoughts on the Bills secondary? How they performed tonight?
When you look at the statistics and at the numbers, right? Tyreek Hill, 5 receptions, 49 yards. Jalen Waddle, 5 receptions, 39 yards. Devin 𝐻𝐭, 7 receptions, 29 yards. Malik Washington, 3 receptions, 12 yards. You don't see anybody that's overly effective in terms of like, this guy really gave the Buffalo Bills secondary work, but they was able to make timely plays. And what concerned me was the separation during the successful plays that the Miami Dolphins had. It seems as if the Buffalo Bills are going to make that effort to play some man, but I'm not sure right now if they have that ability to consistently play man. They're going to have to continue to mix in that zone there, because obviously Jalen Waddle, who is an explosive receiver, had his way in them type of situations tonight where they had to have a first down or where they had to have a play being made. 9 times out of 10, he was able to make that play on that man coverage. And Christian Benford hasn't been lousy to any stretch of the imagination, but he's been had for some plays as well, right? in those man-to-man situations. So Christian Benford is our number one cornerback. I would want him to play better first and foremost, but I do have concerns about, Trey White and in terms of, playing these better receivers and these better quarterbacks going forward. But once again, you know, I, I think when you're talking about a secondary, especially like a secondary like the Buffalo Bills, it's hard to leave one without the other. What type of pass rush
Yeah,
did the Buffalo Bills provide? What type
100%.
of help did the Buffalo Bills defensive line give that back end for the Buffalo Bills, that secondary? So when I look at it and goes hand in hand, the Buffalo Bills defensive line didn't make things better or didn't put the Buffalo Bills secondary in situations really to be successful because their lack of pass rush. The Buffalo Bills had a couple of pressures, but I don't think they had any sacks on the day against Tua. So I think that goes hand in hand. And I think if the Buffalo Bills can provide a pass rush, that back end will look better because of it. And I think tonight, because of the lack of pass rush, I think we struggled in certain down and distance situations.
I agree. If you're gonna play man, you better get to the quarterback. And one thing I will say that I compliment Tua on, it's a pro and it's a con for Tua in their offense. He does lock onto his first read, and if his first read is open, you're not going to sack him. It's just the way that it is. And if you have guys like Tyreek and Waddle who are quick and can get open off the line, it could be a long day. Now, for the most part, the Bills seemed like they confused the Dolphins a little bit, especially early on, and then parts of the second half. But then you had those 17 play drives where it was like third down in 6 or 5, and it just seemed like it was completion after completion after completion. And like you said, Tua didn't have the numbers. I think he threw for 140 yards or something like that, but it was like when he needed the plays, he got the plays, and that was what was concerning. Because like you said, we're going to play teams that have better offensive lines and have more accurate, better quarterback play, a quarterback that can get through his progressions. So to me, I think that's something that I hope the Bills are looking at in the film room this week. All right, not too much to say about special teams. Obviously, starting the game in your own territory on defense is not good. And I think the Bills did what they could on the short field there, but then to respond right back. So what's your thoughts about the Bills' offensive line? And then we could talk about Jackson Hawes, because I really do like what he brings. And we talked about it this offseason about he was just beating guys. Like he was bullying some really good Miami Dolphins defenders. And so what's your thoughts on how the Bills' offensive line played as far as run protection, pass protection, and such?
I mean, you hate to see Josh Allen get touched, Josh Allen get sacked. The Buffalo Bills, I believe, they only gave up 14 sacks, if I'm not mistaken, last
Yeah.
year. I think that they might surpass that this year. Thus far in the rate they're going, we'll see what happens. Josh Allen got sacked twice today, so we don't want to see that. We don't want to see, Bradley Chubb having some success against Dion Dawkins. I think he had a penalty there. He had some success on that side today. So obviously, we don't want to see that overall. I don't think it's bad. The Buffalo Bills are still, when they choose to run the ball, stick to their identity, they are having success. We did see James Cook go over 100 yards today. So I think back to back weeks on a short week, he was having success. We had success in the run game, 5.7 yards per carry. Josh Allen, when he ran the ball, he had 6.3 yards per carry. Even Teron Johnson, 3 attempts, 13 yards, 4.3 yards per carry. So once you see that, the yards per carry, the average per rush, I think that gives you some excitement. The Buffalo Bills can still run the ball, and I think we're starting to recognize the talent of James Cook, right? I think James Cook has been an underrated running back. I think this season, late last season, going into this season, he's turning into that household name for the Buffalo Bills. I think people outside of Buffalo is like, okay, Josh Allen's not by himself. They have James Cook, and James Cook is one of the top backs in this NFL, and I think he's starting to prove that he's one of those top guys in this league. But I think a lot of that success does go to the Buffalo Bills offensive line as well, and how they're able to establish the trenches up front more times than not for the Buffalo Bills to have that type of rushing attack. So again, I think a lot of things go hand in hand. I give James Cook a great deal of success, but we're talking about the offensive line, and I think they deserve some as well. Are they playing the best football you want to see? No, but I think they're on that trajectory. I think they'll get better as the season goes along.
Yeah, I think so too. The first 3 games, it doesn't seem like it's the Bills' offensive line from last year. Like you said, Josh was only sacked 14 times last year, which helps with the turnovers, right? Because if he's rushed, sometimes yes, he makes great, amazing, once in a lifetime plays, but there are times too when he might get strip sacked or whatnot. So to me, I mean, my biggest takeaway from this game is 2 things. Number one, it's a divisional game, and they could always go one way or the other. It always seems like if it's the Jets, the Patriots, the Dolphins, whatever, there's always going to be a game or two in the division that's going to be tight. It's going to be uncomfortable for us. And I feel like after it was 14-7, a lot of Bills fans were like, all right, they're just going to steamroll this team. And then things kind of went off the rails for a little bit. And then the Bills kind of took control a little bit. I think that's going to happen. I mean, I don't want to say the Bills tend to sometimes play down to their opponents, but I feel like this is one of the games, like you said, like, why can't we just put our foot on their throats and just put this game away? We saw it against the Jets. The Bills had no fear. They were attacking offensively, defensively, and it was what it was. So what are your biggest takeaways from this game heading forward if you're going to put your coach's hat on and you have 10 days to prepare for your next game? What's a few key things that the Bills need to focus in on to kind of, all right, this game happened, we won, we got out of here with a win, let's keep moving on to week 4. What's your thoughts there?
Key things the Buffalo Bills have to focus in on. Obviously, you first of all, as a coaching staff, obviously you want to recover, you want to get healthy, you want your players to recover and get healthy. Hopefully, we can see some guys come back at Oliver, Matt Milano. One, both, we'll see. I think we have to work on, getting back to the fundamentals. The Buffalo Bills getting back to the fundamentals in terms of, establishing the run, running the football, getting in the trenches, and just working on the progressions of their games offensively and defensively. What I mean by that is Joe Brady coming back after this 10 days. I think he had times where the Buffalo Bills offense was stagnant. Where can he improve? Where can he get better? Can he show that, he can be more of a down the field, stretch the field type of offensive coordinator and call those type of plays and get out to better starts and put that pressure on the defense like we expect, like everybody kind of expected or what was waiting for, but kind of never got today. We want to have that ability to do that against especially the lesser teams, and hopefully we can watch this game and throw it away and improve and get better and be more explosive and be more situationally better for these type of circumstances if they arise against these type of teams. And defensively, I just think that we just got to continue to get after it. We got to continue to to work the trenches and hope that we can stop the run game first. I think that's a thing for the Buffalo Bills from a week to week basis. No matter who you're playing, I think we have to hone in on stopping the run. The Buffalo Bills have to get off the field on third down. That's going to be a key to the game for the rest of the season for the Buffalo Bills, playing that situational football and rising to the occasion when it's time and getting off the field on third down. So those type of things need to be worked on for the Buffalo Bills during this, I wouldn't say 10-day break, but during this 10-day time where they can have that extended rest to get back and get better.
Okay, concern level of defense on the defensive side of the ball, because we know Josh Allen on the offense, I feel like they can match punch for punch with just about anybody in the NFL. So on the defensive side, I know there's a lot of changes up front. Brandon Beans made it a point to tell everybody that wants to hear that offense wasn't the problem, defense wasn't. Obviously, the Bills have scored 30 points in every game this season. Defensively, though, are you concerned, or do you think that this is a maturation process since there is so much new uh, in the scheme and new players and all that stuff? Like, what's your thoughts there? Because to me, again, it's kind of twofold for today because last week I think we got spoiled with the how Joey Bosa performed last week. Again, this is a different team. They have a different quarterback. Tua, I think I saw in the comment section like 2.2 average time to throw after the snap, which that's hard to get to the quarterback. It is what it is. So what's your concern level as far as you touched on the run defense, but let's talk about the pass rush because I feel like the Bills, Brandon Beane spent a ton of assets to get after the quarterback. We talked about those. We don't have the prototypical one tech defensive tackle. He's got guys that are physical and can win matchups and can kind of bully offensive linemen to collapse pockets and create chaos on in the passing down. So what's your thoughts and your concern level of the Bills defense? Does it need time, or is this something that we should just kind of keep an eye on going forward?
I have my concern with the Buffalo Bills defense come January. That's when I have, the most concern with the Buffalo Bills. Now this year, I just think the Buffalo Bills, the concern is there, but based on the schedule, if the Buffalo Bills are struggling, it's a major concern, right? Because I just think this year is just one of those years for the Buffalo Bills where obviously you can't take any team for granted, but the way just the schedule is set up for the Buffalo Bills, this is the year where it's like, okay, you talked about getting a number one seed for years now. Well, when you have an outlook on things and you have the outlook on the Buffalo Bills season, it's like, okay, this may be the year for the Buffalo Bills to get that one seed. This may be the year for the Buffalo Bills because of the path. You don't want to assume anything, but because of that path, you think this is their best opportunity. So if they struggle in that type of path, then I think it's going to be concerns. I think it's going to be some struggles in game, but I think it should be able to be overcome. The Buffalo Bills have the New Orleans Saints, New England Patriots, Atlanta Falcons. Then they have the bye, Carolina Panthers, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, Buccaneers, Houston, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. This is not there's no disrespect to any of these teams, right? But the Buffalo Bills are fully capable of not only beating these teams, but beating these teams soundly. So, do I expect struggles? Absolutely. But how much struggles do I expect? I expect the struggles of a normal NFL game because these are NFL players that get paid a lot of money that's going against us, right? But overall, these are all teams that I fully expect the Buffalo Bills to be successful against. These are teams that Bobby Babish should be able, even if he struggles in game, he should be able to figure out and make those type of necessary adjustments to make enough plays to win ball games. I'm not saying the Buffalo Bills are going to go 17-0, but I think he has an opportunity based on the schedule to do that more often than not. And if he doesn't do that based on the schedule, then I have major concerns.
Yeah, I feel like the second half the Bills got a little bit more aggressive. So there was some adjustments made. And I've mentioned time and time again that Sean McDermott and his staff, whoever that is calling the plays defensively, is always good at making halftime adjustments. We've had the conspiracy theories about who's calling plays, but you could see tonight there was more of a sense of urgency on the defensive side. Now, they did give up a scoring drive, but you saw a little bit more of a pass rush. You saw the turnover from Terrell Bernard. And again, we talk about the Ravens game. Like, the Bills needed a turnover and they got one. The Bills needed a turnover tonight and they got one. A lot of people say you live by the sword, you die by the sword, but until proven otherwise, I feel like that's just something that, that's good coaching to me. That's, be around the ball. So you talked about Bobby Babbage and you talked about making adjustments and then you talked about the schedule. So to me, the bye is perfect because we haven't talked about what this defense might look like after the bye because we have Larry Ogunjobi coming back, a veteran. We have Michael Hoyt coming back, which I know a lot of the film geeks out there in the content creating world are super high on what he can do for the Bills run defense after what he was able to do for the Rams. So we have to remember that we got those guys coming back. Not using any excuses here, but I'm saying like the Bills defense will get a little bit of an added boost come the bye week. So all right, hey Rich, before we get out of here, any final takeaways or anything, heading into this 10-day stretch? We'll be back on Saturday for 𝐵illsology. We will probably do a little bit of a brief preview or recap of this game, and we'll talk about the New Orleans Saints and some other things happening with the Bills. So what's your thoughts? Anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah, quick question for you.
Yes.
Who performed better tonight, Bobby Babish or Joe Brady? What performance?
Joe Brady.
Joe Brady.
I feel like the Bills were moving the ball at will, and there was just a couple hiccups along the way. That third down sack and then the missed field goal, I feel like that was a rushed play. I don't know what the play was going to be, but Josh looked confused on the protection because you could tell when he tried to turn around that there was just guys all in his face and he had nowhere to go. And you could tell when he was laying on the ground, he was frustrated. And in the second half, I think Babbage had a couple drives that were kind of head scratchers, but to me, or not Babbage, I'm sorry, Brady. But to me, the Bills got to get off the field on third down. They have to figure out a way to mask. Yeah, they have to. Babbage has to find a way to either mask blitzes or, I mean, we brought in this defensive line coach that we heard about all offseason about how these exotic blitz packages were coming, and we haven't seen them. Other than Joey Bosa last week, we really haven't seen anything from Greg Rousseau. We haven't seen much from 𝐤𝐵𝐸𝐻𝐵. We haven't seen anything different with the linebacking play. And again, you said we're not going to use Milano being out as an excuse, but
has he been disappointed, Gregory Rousseau?
Yes.
Yes.
Everybody knows how I feel about Greg Rousseau
I know.
in the contract. Greg Rousseau is the Gabe Davis of the defense. He gets things in bunches and then he disappears for a month. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't bring something to the pass rush or the run defense, but it's like 3 games, no sacks. I haven't looked at his advanced analytics to look at his pressures and things like that, but I even tweeted out earlier today that this feels like it would be a Greg Rousseau game. He plays well against Miami, and he hasn't had one of those games yet this season where he gets sacks in bunches. It just kind of felt like the Dolphins would put a lot of attention on Bosa because of the performance that he came off of. I think his PFF grade was almost 96 last week. And you would feel like that they would focus some of that patchwork offensive line at Joey Bosa, and Greg Rousseau might have a chance to kind of get his, but I didn't see any of that tonight. I don't know if they're still trying to figure out the right formula of guys and the rotation on the field at the same time. But to me, it's simple with the ends. You have Bosa and Rousseau out there at the same time, as much as possible. Whatever that looks like. We've talked about how much Bosa has played in contrast to what we thought he was going to play because of his health risks and things like that. So I just feel like the linebacking play I was concerned with, and Greg Rousseau I was concerned with, and Terrell Bernard came up with a nice interception tonight. So I'll kind of not pick on him because he was not good against Baltimore. But I don't know, man. Like, they gave him all that money, and here we are. No sacks through 3 games, and he's an 8-sack guy. I've been saying it for 4 months. Like, I understand that was his market value for defensive ends because they're the second highest paid position in the NFL. I get that. But what's your thoughts? What's your take on Greg Rousseau? Is this what we're getting for $20 million a year?
I've been the Gregory Rousseau defender. When you've been telling me that you haven't been impressed with Rousseau, I'm like, bro, he's good. He's good. And I think he's going to continue to elevate his game. I'm disappointed. The reason why, I'm not expecting him to be a world beater, but did he play? That's the kind of game. That's the kind of the vibe that I see. Like you see certain guys when Ed Oliver's out there, you've seen him out there. Gregory Rousseau, he didn't, make a sack impact, but you've seen him out there. You see certain guys out there. I don't know. Did he play? And when you have to ask some type of questions, I think that's when it's time to get concerned, because I don't even see him being effective in the run game. Now, I understand that, okay, sacks, but he's supposed to pride himself in the run game, and I haven't seen him even stand out in that area as well. So it's like, okay, we definitely need to we need more. We need more from Gregory Rousseau. Absolutely.
I mean, you're standing across the line from Joey Bosa. And say what you want about Joey Bosa and his age, and maybe he's not the Joey Bosa of 5 years ago with the Chargers, but Joey Bosa came to play last week, and he was joking after the game about how easy it was. I haven't seen a play from Greg Rousseau, who is a core piece of this defense going forward for a long time because they paid him handsomely. I have not seen Greg Rousseau take advantage of his length and his arm span. I just haven't seen it yet. Now, maybe he's doing things that I'm just not really overly paying attention to because, like you said, did he play? Well, if it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, sometimes those guys do the dirty stuff, right? Things that they do in the run game that, you know, helps other players get to the ball or collapse pockets or whatever it is. But again, I said it all off season. Like, I don't mind Greg Rousseau as a player. I think he's a good defensive end, but he got paid like a top 15 defensive end, and they're locked in for him for 4 more years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't want to get on some high horse because there's 14 games left to play, and
Absolutely,
he may turn things around, and he may be going through the growing pains of the rotation, and they're still trying to figure stuff out. But Joey Bosa, 2 of the last 3 weeks, has looked pretty good, and he looked okay against the Ravens. There was a couple plays that he made in that game. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Any other players you want to point out? Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here? We're hitting the hour mark, which is usually like kind of when we tap out. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we have more to come in Billsology this weekend.
I do want to ask you one thing.
Okay.
How do you feel about Dalton Kincaid? He's got 2 touchdowns in 3 games. I feel like we haven't seen the miscommunication stuff that seemed to be an issue between the timing between him and Josh last year. What's your thoughts on Dalton Kincaid so far?
I like what I've seen from Dalton Kincaid. You know, I thought he had a second touchdown tonight, but I think that was a good play by the defender, by the cornerback on that play. Got his hand in there and made a play. But overall, I like what I've seen. When he's had the opportunity to make a play, he's been making plays. After the catch, he showed some ability. He showed some ability on the screen pass. When he caught that ball, that was not an easy catch to make, that screen pass. And, you know, so he's been making plays. This is what I'm hoping to see from Dalton Kincaid. And the hope now is kind of like the hope with a lot of players. You hope he could stay healthy and he could continue to build off these games, because not only is he making a difference as a pass catcher, he's blocking as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing a great job blocking, and you know, talking about Jackson Halls, he's a problem. Jackson Halls,
I love that dude.
He is a problem. Like,
so let me ask you this:
expendable. He's expendable.
Does this make Dawson Knox expendable?
Here's
the thing. Hold on. I'll pump the brakes because I know for a fact that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott speak highly and think highly of Dawson Knox because he does all the stuff that he does not get enough credit for as far as the blocking, and we all know what he means to Josh Allen. But you look at the money, and I'd have to look at the specifics of what the dead cap and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying, before anybody clips me and comes out of context, I'm not saying get rid of Dawson Knox, but I'm saying in a couple years, Jackson Halls he's been targeted a couple times and he's made a couple catches that really counted. That one tonight was nice. The one against the Ravens down inside the 1 yard line. I love this dude. He just blows people up, and he is as advertised, and it's refreshing to know that we got all the scouting information about Jackson Hawes and it's coming to fruition. So I like that guy. So it's
I
funny
like
that
him.
I finished your thoughts.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I got one more question before we get
Yeah,
out of
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, whose fault is it? Hopefully, I'm wording this question properly. Whose fault is it that Curtis Samuel's inactive? Is that frustrating to see? Because when I see that, I see $8 million. I don't see Curtis Samuel's inactive. I see 3 years, $24 million. That's what I see
Mhm.
when it comes across the inactive list. I don't know what everybody else is seeing, but whose fault is that? His inability to stay healthy and show what he has? Is that Elijah Moore? Is that the coaching? Is that the coaching staff? Is that Brandon Beane? Whose fault is that?
I don't think it's Brandon Beane's fault. Yes, he paid him. He's the guy that signed him and stuff like that. But that was a good sign. I was pounding the table for Curtis Samuel. I was also this offseason pounding the table for Elijah Moore, but we won't get into that. I think there's a trust thing there because last year the injury stuff happened, and then when he came back towards the end of the year, he made a couple plays towards the end of the year, and we saw the ability of inserting him into the offense, what it looked like with getting the ball to him in space, right? He's a yak guy, right? He can make it happen because of his speed. And then this year, he was like the talk of the receiver room because, well, if he's healthy, oh my gosh, we have someone who basically we didn't have but for a handful of games last year. And he's like the missing piece possibly. And then he was injured in the offseason. And then there was that issue where he had the personal stuff, and I'm not going to fault him for that, whatever happened where he missed the game, the final preseason game. And then now I feel like the Bills have seen what Elijah Moore has been doing that we haven't seen in practice. We haven't seen the relationship that he's grown with Josh Allen, which Curtis Samuel wasn't able to have with Josh Allen last year because of his inability to get on the field until it was later in the season. And then obviously they were getting the ball to him. So I don't know if it's anyone's fault, but someone said this to me when I complained about it on social media during the game, when I saw that right before the game, when I saw Curtis Samuel was inactive. Someone said, well, he's only here because of the money. Okay, well, what if he's not here? He's not playing. So you're still paying him to not play if he's here or not, right? So if he's not on the team and you have to pay him, okay, you made a hard decision. We don't like dead cap. Obviously, the Bills are in a really tight cap situation for next year. But he's not playing and you're paying him. So it's frustrating either way. But like I said earlier, Elijah Moore is making it harder and harder for him to get on the field, on top of the fact that Tyrell Shavers plays all 4 phases of special teams and he's being targeted. He was targeted last week. He had 2 targets tonight. So I don't know. It's a tough decision. You got 2 guys in Tyrell Shavers who play special teams, and then you have Elijah Moore who can do all the bells and whistles stuff, the Swiss Army knife stuff, both combined making less than Curtis Samuel. So Elijah Moore could be playing for a long-term, like a 3-year deal if the Bills like him and like what he does. And so I don't know, man. Like it's one of those things where if we insert him, does it make a difference? If we insert Curtis Samuel, to me, it just takes snaps away from the guys that have been there from week 1. And that's my 2 cents on it. What's your take on the Curtis Samuel dynamic?
Obviously, it's disappointing. I mean, from a financial standpoint, it's disappointing, and from a player standpoint as well. You think when you get a Curtis Samuel, you think he would be at least a part of the offense, but I think that the Buffalo Bills, they got to roll with who they have, and if they can find a trade, I don't know who's going to want him, right? But if they can find a trade that can make the Buffalo Bills better somewhere else, absolutely, I think, come trade deadline, if that's possible, you would go ahead and entertain that. Otherwise, then I think, he's expensive right now, but, being in this combative sport, you never know what might happen. He might not be available now. He might not be a factor now, but he may be a factor in December or January, depending on who's playing those games. Hopefully everybody's healthy and available come that time to play. But in this combat sport, you never know, and you got to have the next man up. And Curtis Samuel wouldn't be a bad. He would be an expensive next man up to have, but he wouldn't be a bad option to go to. God forbid if somebody do go down.
You know who else is sitting there though? That wouldn't be a bad option to be a wide receiver 5. Gabe Davis is on the practice squad.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Gabe Davis is a difference maker, but if you can do something with Curtis Samuel, and if there's an injury, you have Gabe Davis. I'm not saying I don't want to get people started on Gabe Davis, but I'm just saying, like, you're paying a guy $8 million to not play. I'm not sure if there's been conversations between Bean and McDermott about why isn't this guy playing and stuff like that. But I find it hard to believe that there's not a role for Curtis Samuel on this team offensively. I mean, you saw what they did tonight. They scored 31 points without him. They scored 30 points last week and they scored 41 the week before. So maybe they don't need him. I don't know, but it's a dicey situation. And like you said, there may be a team come trade deadline that will take a flyer on him for a year and a half, because he's got another year left on his deal. I don't know. We'll have to see, but it's going to be interesting the rest of the year. If he's inactive all the way up through to the trade deadline and the Bills don't do anything with him afterwards and he doesn't get any playing time, it's going to be a really interesting conversation to be had with Brandon Bean and the front office. So, all right, that's all I got. You got anything else? Anything else you want to touch on? Anything we didn't touch on?
No, the Buffalo Bills beat the Miami Dolphins by the score 31-21. Divisional games are not going to be easy all the time, no matter what the record is. Even the old saying is, divisional games, you even throw the records away, because you never know what may happen. So are there things to work on? Absolutely, for the Buffalo Bills. But would you be happy to work on those things while you're undefeated, 3-0, going to next week at home against the New Orleans Saints? Absolutely. So we'll take this 3-0 any day of the week. Big dubs, Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and how many people last year complained about the Chiefs' ugly wins? All the ugly wins that they had last year, but guess what? They made the Super Bowl. So you win games, you stack wins, and you try to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So that's the Built in Buffalo postgame show. He is Akeem Richens. I'm Dave Myers. We will see you guys next time. If you like our content, please like this video and check us out on Saturday night. We'll be back with Billsology. For Rich, Akeem Richens, I'm DM3 Dave Myers. As always, 3-0, big dubs. Go Bills.
Go Bills.